Howdy everybody, Steve here, KM9G. I don't know what it is, but when they showed it to me, I had to have it and I had to share it with y'all. We've got USB-C cable coming in, and we've got a big bright screen, and we've got a couple of power ports on the bottom. That's right, this is a USB powered, or ham shack power supply powered, power supply. How do you power a power supply with a power supply? Let's go find out. All right, let's rip into this thing. And by rip in, I mean gently cut the plastic away so we can open it up without damaging the box and destroying this product's value. Because everybody knows that the value is in the original box, right? And we have a QC sticker. We have an owner's manual where English is in the back. Okay, page 16 on to page 34. So that much of the manual is for us. Pull that out of the way, see if there's anything else in this box. Oh, we've got cables too, I like it. Okay, so we have a micro USB to USB-A, and we have a banana jack to alligator clip. Those are some good alligator clips too. Usually the boot slides back and forth on the alligator clips, and that becomes a pain in the butt. Okay, let's get this stuff here, put back in and get this out of the way. Again, being extremely gentle and cautious with the box. And then let's get our new toy out to play with. All right, there we go. The screen protector is on, and it's already a little scuffed up on the screen protector, so we need to take that off. There we go. Nice, fresh, clean screen. We have positive red and negative blue, and then we have a dial here. We've got a couple of buttons on the front. Home, M, left, right, and both directions at the same time. It's a cross button. Sure. The screen lifts up so you can have it at a nice comfortable viewing angle when it's sitting on your desk. And then PD or DC for your input. So PD or DC input. We're going to leave it at PD for now. And then it has micro USB. So we're going to take the micro USB and I'm going to plug this in real quick and see what it does. This is not a battery. This is a power supply, which is kind of interesting because in order to supply power, you need a source of power like with any other power supply. And we're going to see what this looks like off of a battery pack. This is the FNIRSI battery pack, and I have used this for quite a while. This battery pack will power my Raspberry Pi ADSB station for about 15 hours, and it will power my QRP radio, my ICOM IC705 for a while, and it will recharge my cell phones. This is actually an extremely useful tool that I have in my arsenal. So I'm going to put this into the QC output, the orange one, which instantly lights this thing up. And that screen looks pretty good. It's telling me 3.77 volts input, which is kind of interesting because this is capable of doing 5 volts. So let's try a different cable, one that it didn't come with. We'll do the same QC output, but this one here is USB-C on the far side. And there is 12.10 volts input. That's fantastic. Now if I switch this over to the regular output, regular USB output, plug it into the same PD port in the back, we're at 5.26 volts input. And then now for the full deal, I have a USB-C power cable. Plug that into the PD port on the back, and we're going to plug that into the USB-C output port on the front. And now we're at 12.0 volts. Okay. And we're not powering anything yet with the output of this. So you're not seeing any output voltage or any output amps or any output wattage. And in order to play with that, we need some power leads. And this is what it comes with, but you can obviously make your own power leads. So I'm going to take the negative wire and plug it into the blue connector for negative on the front. And I'm going to take the positive wire and plug it into the red positive connector on the front. I'm going to get out a very simple multimeter. This one already has the display on the screen, but we always trust but verify. So I'm going to set this to the 20 volt range and DC power. And then because these are alligator clips, I can just clip that on there and clip that on there. And obviously there is 0 output. So now let's take the USB-C from the power supply and plug it into the back here. See if we can get some glare off of that and yet still see it. There we go, that might be good. We've got 12 volts input from the battery bank. And let's see what we can do here. Over voltage is 30, over current is 5.1 amps, over power is 150 watts, over temperature is 80 degrees Celsius, under voltage is anything below 5 volts. So this has got a couple of really cool protections built in. Let's go over to system. All right, so we've changed the theme to IE. There we go, look at that. Easier to read for some of us old folks with bad eyes. So in order to move through the menu, we press the arrow keys to go across the top here, across the top tabs. And then when we are at the tab that we want, we use this key here to go into the menu item, and then left or right to change it. So we changed it to Chinese and back to English. Down to the theme, we can do the regular theme or the IE theme. Brightness, volume, metering is open or close. Let's put it on open and see what that does. So far nothing, and we're doing no output yet. So we got to get it to get into run mode. And there is your about. This is the DPS-150 from FNIRSI, and I've heard people pronounce that as FNIRSI. And then once you get your settings all the way that you want them in here, there is a button on the side, which is your power button, and it's also your run stop button. So if we look over here, you can see that the meter is reading 0, and then we push the button on the side, and our ports light up, and we're getting 4.97 volts out, and the power supply is saying 5.0 volts. So who knows which one of these two isn't telling the truth. But if you have 1 meter, then you're 100% sure what the output is. And if you have 2 meters, then you're never sure what the output is. And we're at the never sure. And I can introduce a 3rd meter, and then we still wouldn't know who was who. So let's do that. This is a slightly better meter. This is the Kaiweets KM601, and I like this one because it is pretty fun to look at. And that's what's important in a meter, is fun to look at. And then the meter has tried to figure out what to do, because it's an auto-detecting, auto-ranging, auto-function meter, and it has decided to measure ohms of resistance. And so it's telling me that there is 31 ohms of resistance, and the meter is actually feeding that through and back into the power supply, and the power supply is reading 0.31 volts. That's interesting. So I'm going to change this over to voltage, and I'm going to have it set for DC, and now the power supply has calmed down, so let's run it. Okay, so now we're getting 5.003 on the Kaiweets meter, as opposed to the 4.97 on the AlloSun meter. So now they are much closer in agreement. 5.00, 5.00. I like it. Let's turn it back off, and let's adjust this. See what the easiest way to adjust it is. So we push this little multi-arrow button here, just like we would if we were in the menu, until we get to the volts, and then you see we're at the last digit on the voltage there. I'm going to go ahead and hit the run button, and that's going to start producing 5 volts, 5 volts. And then in the front here, there is an adjustment wheel. And I turned it up to 5.01, and we went up to 5.01, 5.02, 5.02, and you guys can't see that at all because of the glare, which is one of the reasons why I don't like this for doing videos. But it looks great in person. So 5.02, 5.03, 5.04, let's go back down to 0. 5.003, 5.00, so we're good there. I'm going to move over to the big boy numbers, and I'm going to change the volts from 5 to 6. There's a good match. To 7, 8, 9, 10, 9.98, okay. 11 is 10.98. 11.86 is 11.84. And that's as high as it's going to go on that scale. So let's go back over here. Yep, so that's as high as that's going to go. Let's see what this open-close metering does for us. Not much that I can see. Let's see what the manual says to do with that. It says measurement switch on off. Okay, now we got this big mess of wires on the desk, and this was power out of a USB battery pack. However, what happens if we plug this thing into a USB power brick? And they sent over a USB power brick, but it is for the wrong nationality. So we pull this piece off, and now this will fold out, and it's for the right nationality. So that's not a bad little deal. Folds up nice and compact for you, and then opens up when you need it. in order to switch over to a different type of plug. And then this locks in place for you, so it's pretty strong and isn't going to fall apart on you when you're least expecting it to fall apart on you. Oh, there's another, before I get yelled at, get this thing off. All right, there we go. And this has 2 Type-C output and 1 USB output. This comes separately from the power supply, but I want to make sure that we have a good, strong 100-watt power supply. How many amps can this put out? I'm seeing 3 amps, 5 amps, because as y'all know, USB PD puts out a variety of voltages and amperages and so forth. So I'm seeing, it looks like 3 amps, 5 amps. 5 amps at 20 volts. It's a pretty beefy little deal here. Nice. And then now we have a nice USB power cord to go with it, with a nice leather-like strap to wrap it up when not in use. Okay, let's get this thing all plugged in. We'll be right back. All right, we got a big boy extension cord and a big boy power supply and a big boy USB-C cable. So now let's get this plugged in. Now that we have the big boy USB-C cable plugged in, I am out to 20 volts. And let's see if the meter agrees. 19.94, nice. All right, 19.99, and that goes right down to 9.96. 9.99 is my setting over here. Let me turn that back up for you. All right, 19.93 here, 19.99 there. All right, 11 volts here, 10.98 there. Zero and zero. We're putting out 0.051. That's 9.98 when I changed it to 10. Let's change it to 20. 19.97, 19.92. That'll do it. So it is all in the power supply that you feed it. This one here with the PD cable that I had wasn't able to trigger it high enough, but now I've got it triggered high enough. Excellent. So now I'm going to pull the USB-C cable out of the back and we're going to try something completely different. There is a DC barrel jack on there and it says input range. You might not be able to read it, but it's shiny black on matte black. And the input range is 5 volts to 32 volts. So that means I'm going to be able to plug this thing into my ham radio workbench power supply. This is plugged into my Astron 35 amp power supply, and I will plug it right into the back here. And you'll notice that nothing really happens at first. On the back side, you can switch it from PD to DC. So I'm going to switch it over there. And it should tell me input is 13.74 volts, which is what's coming off of my ham radio power supply, my Astron. 13.74, 13.8. You know how these numbers always work. So now let's turn our meter back on and let's switch this back over to voltage, DC voltage. And now I want to see where we can go with this. So it knows that it's getting 13.74 in and that it is unable to go any higher than that. This thing can't invent voltage. It can only use what's available. We were able to get 20 volts out of it with the PD because of the way USB PD works, USB-C PD works. So I've got this in DC mode. Let's go ahead and hit the run button. And 13.54 out, 13.51 on the meter. There you go. So now I can take my ham radio workbench power supply and I can lower it down to whatever I want to lower it down to. So let me move over there. That's 13.53. Lower is that way, higher is that way. So we're at 13.50. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Excellent. Excellent. Now I'm going to go back over here to our 100-watt brick and we're going to take a look at the maximum output we can get, 20 volts at 5 amps. So now we need to get a tool where we can try and consume 20 volts at 5 amps. Remember that it's going to put 20 volts at 5 amps out of here, and then this is going to have to do some math and consume some electricity on its own to take it down to whatever its power rating is that it can put out. So there's going to be a little bit of conversion loss, so I wouldn't expect a full 20, and we saw that earlier at the 19, but let's see what it can do for amperage. So when you have a power supply, you probably should also have a load type device. And so now I've got my load and I've got my power supply and I need power for the load itself. So I'm going to power this, and this can run up to 12 volts. I'm going to power this off of my workbench power supply, and that will give us a nice screen over here. And I'm going to take the black lead and the black lead and connect that. And we're going to take the red lead and the red lead and connect those. And then now that we have 20 volts input, we need to set the amperage, and it said 3 amps, so let's set that. 5.1 is the max I can give it. It should not be able to do that. And then we turn our coarse adjustment and our fine adjustment down on the MakerHawk load device. We want to switch over here and we want 20 volts. So we've set that to as high as we can get, which is 19.95. Yep. So 20.15 in, 19.95 out, and let's hit the run button. And so we're providing voltage, but we're not providing hardly any amps because I haven't adjusted the amperage over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up a little bit and see if we can get a little bit better reading out of it. In the top corner here, you'll see 0.00 amps, or if not, you can take my word for it. And you see voltage in of 19.8 volts. I'm going to make sure that my leads aren't going to get in my way and hurt anything. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn this knob here, which is going to start to consume amperage. And that is 2.03 amps. Let's turn it down a little bit to get it. This is our coarse adjustment, so it's a little coarse. I want to get it down below 2, and then I'm going to use my fine adjustment to get it right dialed in as close to 2 as I can get it. And you can see these numbers over here are dancing all over the place. That's 2.01 amps right there, 19.0 volts being drawn, and we're converting the electricity into heat. And we are reading 2 amps, 2.027 amps here, 19.25 volts, and 39.02 watts. So now, what will happen when we turn this thing up? That's 3.29, 5.0 over here, 5.01 over here, and we'll start to dial up coarse. That's 5.1 and 5.0. And now we should get to the point where no matter how hard we turn this, my fine adjustment's now maxed out. Let's unmax the fine adjustment, 4.67. My coarse adjustment is now maxed out. So I can't consume any more amperage in the load than I can deliver in the power supply. And I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't want to ask for 30 amps and have this thing try and deliver it and burn itself all up. So we're doing pretty good. The voltage has dropped way down though. Okay, so if I back this thing down, where does the voltage get happy? Okay, we started seeing voltage again. We're at 2.7 amps. 3.6 amps. We started pulling the voltage down, and I'm going to assume that this is the USB wall wart that's not strong enough. So we'll switch this back over to the workbench power supply here in a second. 4.2 amps, and we're at 18.6 volts, and we're trying to deliver 19.94 volts. All right, that looks good. Stop that, pull off the USB port, switch to regular voltage, and now I need to figure out how to power that thing. So I can power the power supply, and the load device, it gets a little finicky, because this connection here in the back is a little loose, but I'm going to power the load device off of the USB wall wart. There we go. Okay, and now I'm still set at 19 and 5, but I only have 13.7 in. So when I hit this run button, it should immediately correct the setting. It didn't correct the setting. Now when I tried to adjust it, it corrected it down. Okay, so we're at 13.73 in from the Astron power supply, which you guys know is a good power supply brand, and we can put out 13.5 volts. So I'm going to start drawing some juice, and we're down to 12.8 at 2 amps, and there we go, overcurrent protection, because the Astron can deliver more than this thing can change. So that's good. Now let's reset it, turn that down to 0 before we overcurrent again. All right, turn that up as much as we can, and now let's give it some juice. That's 3.9 amps, and she's doing pretty good. 3.933, 3.91 over here, 4.22, 4.3, 4.37, so 4.384, 4.35. So we're doing good. We've sagged down to 11.9 on the power supply, and our voltage setting has gone down. Let's see if I can change that again. Yep, it doesn't want to produce more than 12 volts, and it's telling me the input is down to 12.19. That's 5.09 amps, and we've dropped all the way down to 1 volt. So some interesting things going on there. So this has a 5 amp limit, but it seems to be really happy at 4.4. So 12.38 volts in, 11.99 volts out, 4 amps draw, 4 amps draw. They both say 4.4. See if we can make it say 4.5. 4.51 over here, 4.52 over there. Nice. We've been at this thing for 20 minutes now, and I still haven't showed you every single feature that this thing has. So I want to get over and do a little screen share with you and show you some of the features on the website. And if there is some interest in the comments down below, I will make some more videos on this thing because it is pretty slick. I am digging this. So we go over and we look at the website. This is FNIRSI.com. Again, I guess that's how you pronounce it. There is a whole bunch of really cool stuff here. There's all the specs. If you guys want to read the specs, I'm not going to read them to you. You guys know how to read. So there is an ultra low ripple output, so that'll protect your gear for you. It's got a bunch of presets in case you want to switch back and forth between 9 volts, 5 volts, 12 volts, etc. 3.3 volts for some Arduino type stuff. The one USB micro to USB-A cable was actually so you can connect this thing to a computer. I knew that going in, but I don't do Windows, and it's a Windows only app, and if y'all want to see it, I'll do some Windows and we'll make this thing app away. Real-time display, curve logging, preset management, and then under advanced mode you can do sequential output, voltage, and current scanning, which is pretty cool. We didn't get into any of the on-screen graphing functions, so we've got a couple of them there. And those banana plug connectors on the front are actually pretty slick. So you have 4mm banana plugs in case you wanted to get some banana plugs off of the jungle market and make your own cables. You can wrap wire around it and screw it tight, or you can shove wire through it and screw it tight. So a couple of different ways to deal with that. And then the FD10 software is the software to manage the power supply from your computer. And there's a couple of really interesting things that you can do with that. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of this, what you might think you might be able to do with it, and where we should go from here. This thing is probably one of the neatest little gizmos I have seen in a long time, and you can do quite a bit of interesting things with it. I would use this predominantly for testing electrical devices and trying to get known amounts of voltages out. And that's going to depend, as you saw earlier, on the quality of your power supply going in. So if I wanted to take my ham shack power supply at 13.8 volts, 35 amps, and dial that down to power a Raspberry Pi at 5 volts and 3 amps, I can do it. And I can do it under a controlled type of environment so that I know what's going in, I know what's going out, I know what to expect, as opposed to some random wall wart that I got and plugged into my AC socket and stuck the USB connector into the Raspberry Pi and crossed my fingers. And if you guys use Raspberry Pis a lot, you kind of know that any old wall wart ain't going to do the job because Raspberry Pis have a very interesting way of working. So this might be your way around that with those power ports on the front. But you got to make yourself a cable first. And we love making cables. I'm going to use this in a couple of videos in the future. I just wanted to introduce it to you now so you knew what it was and you knew how it worked. And in the future when I use it, I can say, come back here and take a look at this thing. If you are interested in getting one of these, then there will be a link in the description down below. And I'll also have a link for the portable battery pack and for the battery draining tool, because all of those things are extremely important for a variety of obvious reasons that I'm not going to explain right now. Right, that's it. Sometimes it's just fun, and that's what the important thing is. There is a video right over here I think you'll enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome. I'll see you over there.